All right, good morning, everybody. We're having a Juneteenth party up here. It's a good thing. All right, well, today is an exciting day for our cities. We kick off our first three-day Juneteenth Jubilee celebration. We're really looking forward to our city coming alive with festive events that will highlight this historical date in our country's history. Juneteenth has long been a great day of celebration in our black community, in the black community of America, and it's long past time that all of America, and specifically our city, and everybody in our city honors the victory for freedom that dealt another blow to America's original sin of slavery, and that's what Juneteenth represents. That's why last year I declared Juneteenth an official holiday for Louisville Metro government employees. Since Juneteenth falls on a Saturday, Metro offices and services will be closed on Friday, June 18th in observance of the holiday. Furthering our commitment in February, I established by executive order a Juneteenth Jubilee Celebration Commission, hence all of these glorious citizens we have behind here. There we go. And the members of this commission are far-reaching. They include representatives from Metro Council, the business community, the arts, educational institution, media, and many others, because we knew we needed a full cross-section of people to collaborate on a citywide celebration of history that also supports our ongoing work to advance racial equity. The 15 members of this commission who've been working since winter to develop our family-friendly educational and cultural celebrations events are first, our chair, Wanda Mitchell-Smith from Metro Government here, fearless leader, Wanda. Celeste Lanier, the Senior Program Coordinator at the University of Louisville. Kim Adams, Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Papa John's. Al Cornish. Al, they're calling you a retired Chief Learning Officer at Norton Healthcare. But I just call you an active citizen that responds to the call no matter what's needed there. We need to work on that. Dawn Wilson, an instructor with Louisville Fencing. Nikki Lanier, the Senior Vice President and Regional Executive of the Louisville Branch of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Barbara Lynn Jamison, General Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Kentucky Opera. Dawn G., anchor and reporter at Wave 3 News and also hosts Wave Country. Jerry Eves, head coach of men's basketball at Simmons College of Kentucky, plus many other titles. Walter Woods, Chief Executive Officer of the Humana Foundation. Jennifer Green, Vice President of Global Mergers and Acquisitions at KFC Yum Brands and also chairs our Civilian Review Board. Carol Jones-Clay, Senior Vice President, Managing Director of Community Relations at Republic Bank. Also, 3 members of Metro Council, Ja'Cory Arthur, Keisha Dorsey, and Paula McCraney. So we've got a wonderful group, as I said, headed by Chairperson Wanda Mitchell-Smith, who represents intergovernmental affairs for Metro government. Many of these folks are with us here today, so I just want to again say thank you all very, very much for the wonderful work that you guys are doing. There's a lot of excitement around this week. And for the past several months, the Commission has been assisting with all the details of planning and producing the Juneteenth Jubilee celebration, including developing a budget, securing sponsorships, and other funding needed to produce our events in coordination with our council, Waterfront Park, and Louisville Metro government. And their work extends beyond this year. They're already working on 2022. And when you think about the importance of this celebration and this commission, it's critical to realize that despite what most of white America thinks, not every American attained freedom on July 4th, 1776. For enslaved African Americans, freedom came almost a century later. Juneteenth, the annual Freedom Day celebration to commemorate the belated announcement in 1865 to enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, that the Civil War was over, is a significant and monumental moment in our nation's history, and every American should understand the significance of this day and honor this day. Every American should also recognize that true freedom, the ability to achieve one's full human potential, is not a given for too many black Americans, black Louisvillians, even today. The protests that we saw locally and nationally last summer were another past due wake-up call that America has, Louisville has, to make a greater commitment to racial justice and equity. This is a fundamental priority for our country because America is built on the principle of freedom and equality for all, not just some people, for all. But those values have to be real and meaningful in the lives of every American. And right now, that's just simply not the case. And to not deny that is deny the data and to deny the facts. So it's all of our jobs, but again, especially those of us in governmental institutions and those white Americans to fix this. That's why the Juneteenth celebration provides opportunities to highlight black-owned businesses, encourage black entrepreneurship and wealth building, showcase the arts, health and wellness, participate in meaningful discussions about race, equity, inclusion, and much, much more. So now I'd like to welcome back a critical community partner, and by that I mean essential community partner and friend, and that's Akram Burton. He is the Executive Director of the Kentucky Center for African American Heritage, to share more about the importance of Juneteenth and its importance in our city. Akram?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad to be here. And I want to thank you as the Executive Director of the Kentucky Center for African American. I want to thank you for, first of all, convening this commission and also for designating Juneteenth as a city holiday. Great jubilation occurred on June 19, 1865, when formerly enslaved African people in Texas were the last to be freed from the brutality and horrors of slavery in the United States. They did not know about their freedom for a full 2 months after the end of the Civil War, and more than 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. Although Juneteenth generally celebrates the end of slavery in the United States, it was still legal and practiced in 2 Union border states, Delaware and Kentucky. The Civil War ended in April 1865, but slavery did not end for approximately 225,000 enslaved Africans in Kentucky until later that year, when the 13th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified to abolish chattel slavery nationwide in December of 1865. In the years before June 19, 1865, news of the proclamation was slow to reach Texas and did not reach some quarters at all. In other places, the news was hidden by slaveholders to preserve slavery. It took over 2 years for news to travel in the southern states because enforcement of the proclamation generally relied on the protection of Union troops. Texas, being the most remote slaveholding state, had a low presence of Union troops as the American Civil War ended. Thus, enforcement was slow and inconsistent. Kentucky has a serendipitous connection to Juneteenth. On Monday morning, June 19, 1865, Union Army Major General Gordon Granger, with 2,000 Union soldiers strong, arrived in Galveston, Texas, and issued General Order Number 3, announcing that enslaved Africans were free. After the war, General Granger became the commanding general of the Army in Kentucky, where he married Mary Letcher. The couple led a quiet life in Lexington for 7 years before Granger died in 1876. Letcher died a year later. Both are buried in the Lexington Cemetery. So the name Juneteenth is a combination of June 19th. Juneteenth is also known as Emancipation Day. It's known as Emancipation Celebration. It's known as Freedom Day. It's known as Jubilee Day. It's known as Liberation Day. It's known as June. It's known as Juneteenth Independence Day. Each state had its own story about enslaved Africans hearing about their freedom. July 4th in New York, September 22nd in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, and May 8th in Mississippi. There's another Emancipation Day as well. On April 16th, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed the District of Columbia Compensated Emancipation Act, ending slavery in the District of Columbia. Passage of this law came 8.5 months before President Lincoln issued his Emancipation Proclamation. The act brought to a conclusion decades of public agitation and disobedience to end what abolitionists call a national shame of slavery in this nation's capital. This year will mark Juneteenth's 156th year, the oldest celebration of African Americans in the United States, and is quickly becoming one of the most popular holidays observed by African Americans, though not federal holiday yet. 47 states and the District of Columbia recognize Juneteenth as a state or ceremonial holiday. The only 3 states that do not recognize the holiday are North Dakota, South Dakota, and Hawaii. Texas was the first state to recognize the holiday in 1980. It is good that more people outside of the African American community want to participate in celebrating Juneteenth. However, they must go beyond celebrating Juneteenth and support our fight for reparations to repair the damage done to my people during slavery. The United States has yet to compensate descendants of enslaved African Americans for their labor, nor has the federal government atoned for the lost equity from anti-black housing, transportation, and business policies. Slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, anti-black practices like redlining, and other discriminatory public policies in criminal justice and education have robbed African Americans of the opportunity to build wealth afforded to their white peers. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about, when I say wealth, I'm saying asset minus debt. I am hopeful that the mayor's actions will bring citizens of Metro Louisville together to celebrate a common bond of freedom through the recognition, observance, education, historic preservation of Juneteenth. I'm also hopeful that they will stand with us in our demand for reparations for the damage done by the horror and brutality of slavery, so we can begin the journey of true healing, thus setting an example of our city's compassion to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Akram. Just a side note, too, I mean, there's controversy in many states in the country where certain state legislatures are trying to ban the teaching of much of what Akram just spoke about. And to ban the teaching of the history of the facts that have helped shape our country would be a really sorry time. And it's passed successfully in some other states right now. So we all must advocate for the ability to teach the truth. The truth might be uncomfortable to some folks, but you've got to work through that truth because the truth was very uncomfortable to other folks in reality. And so our nation must do everything it can, and our state must do everything it can, and our city to repair that damage. So thank you, Professor. Appreciate that. Next, let's hear from one of our Metro Council members who has been involved in many of our city's Juneteenth celebrations before this actual event. So we were really pleased to bring Councilman Arthur's experience with other events into this larger citywide commission, and certainly are pleased he's also is one of our outstanding Metro Council people. Ja'Cory Arthur.
Peace. I'd like to localize Juneteenth, localize the institution of slavery a bit because, you know, we talk about Juneteenth and we really nationalize it and we talk about Galveston, Texas, but we don't really acknowledge what happened right here in Louisville. And we ignore the fact that Black Louisvillians, enslaved Louisvillians, you could really say they were the first Louisvillians. A text known as 2 Centuries of Black Louisville taught us that slaves were dispatched in advance of their owners to clear land, plant crops, build houses in Louisville. And by the 1840s, there were slave trade businesses all around the city with slave pens located downtown. Among these enslaved people were women like Henrietta Wood, who was bought by a merchant in Louisville, taken from her family, kidnapped, sold, shipped. She eventually gained her freedom, and she actually sued for reparations, changing the future of her descendants, setting them on a path of wealth that all descendants are owed, because there is no emancipation without reparations. Amongst those enslaved people were men like York, who I call the real hero of the Lewis and Clark journey, hunting, fishing, commencing trade, making medicine, and making treaties with native tribes so that other explorers could pass through peacefully. He came back from that expedition, came back to Louisville, spent most of his life in Louisville, unfortunately still enslaved. But the very first of our enslaved people was none other than a Louisvillian known as Cato Watts. And he was a musician. And even though he was also the first of us, unfortunately, he was also the first to be executed in this city that we know as Louisville. But I want us to remember him in the same way that he was written about in this text from 1894 that described him as a source of pleasure to the islanders was a fiddle in the hands of Cato Watts, a slave who belonged to Captain John Doane. Cato would play for hours in the shade of the trees while young and old joined in. It goes on to talk about how he was the source of light and he helped them sing spirituals and hymns. Cato, Henrietta, York, countless other Black Louisvillians made our city what it is today. And when I say made our city, I mean they built our city. And that's why we need to keep them alive through our stories, through the educational curriculum, through our music, through our food, through our rejoice. Because even though they went through the institution of slavery, Jim Crow and otherwise, even though they went through so much pain, we can never let them die in vain. So I strongly encourage anyone and everyone, black, white, brown, polka dot, stripe, whatever, whoever you are, to celebrate Juneteenth, to acknowledge Juneteenth, to teach your children about Juneteenth. Whether or not this gets banned in the schools doesn't matter. You need to do the real teaching in your home, in your churches, in your community centers, in your libraries. That's where you need to be learning about Juneteenth, because I never learned about this in my schooling. This should be something that we live with all year round, outside of June 19th. But if you've never acknowledged it before, I strongly encourage you to start this weekend. Thank you.
Great job, Councilman. Thank you. Okay, one of the many Juneteenth Jubilee celebration events starts today for our little Louisvillians, ages 7 to 12. The Juneteenth Day Camp, hosted by Louisville Visual Arts and Waterfront Park, will be held outdoors with plenty of room for social distancing. These campers will meet each morning for visual art instruction and activities on the covered outdoor patio of the David K. Karam building. We're very proud Waterfront Park continues to support our Juneteenth celebrations. You might recall that the park hosted an inaugural Juneteenth celebration in 2019 and a virtual event last year. So to speak more about the partnership between the park and Louisville Visual Arts, our Waterfront Park President and Executive Director Deborah Belitsky, followed by Louisville Visual Art LVA Education Director Annette Cable. Deborah?
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your participation in this commission and the work that you do. That's very important. We are honored to once again be commemorating the history and significance of the Juneteenth holiday on the waterfront with some great events this week, including what you'll hear about in a little bit, Norton Healthcare's Wellness Fair at Waterfront Park, the community walk and dedication of the limestone reconciliation benches along the Riverwalk as part of the Unknown Project, and Celebrate Juneteenth by Black Complex at Waterfront Park. Our involvement with Juneteenth started in 2019 when we held our first annual Juneteenth Jubilee in the Park, a wonderful celebration of Juneteenth through music and arts. Little did we know at that time that our plans for a second annual event would be thwarted by COVID in 2020. So, we had to change gears, and we remain committed to honoring the holiday and produced a virtual program in partnership with Actors Theater of Louisville and local musicians, with the support of Metro Council and many of the great people and organizations that are represented today. Now, in this third year of our involvement, in addition to the great events happening in the park this week, we are pleased to add a new component of the celebration with another partner of ours. Louisville Visual Art has conducted art camps at Waterfront Park for several years, and this week LVA is conducting a Juneteenth-themed camp at Waterfront Park. And here to talk about the details of that a bit more is Annette Cable, the Education Director for LVA. Annette?
I would like to thank the Juneteenth Commission and Waterfront Parks for helping us all to get this little camp started. Our campers had to submit videos and essays about how art changes the world. And our teacher, our fearless teacher this week will be Lance Newman, spoken word artist, poet, and visual artist, a local artist. He's going to direct these youngsters all up and down the waterfront with words, with art. We're going to have a little pop-up gallery on Saturday at the LVA gallery for the families and Juneteenth Commission. And I'm hoping that by starting off with these 10 little kids, that we can start off an education program to educate folks about Juneteenth with our little guys, get it going so that everybody knows about Juneteenth, everybody knows what has happened in our country, and our little guys are where we're going to start. So if you happen to see a little group of kids on Waterfront Camp or Waterfront Park this week, they might be writing poems, they might be chalk drawing some cool art on the sidewalk, so be on the lookout for some cool artwork on the waterfront this week. We hope that you'll have fun and go out and see the kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah and Annette. We're thankful to have another dedicated community partner that's made a profound difference in our city. Norton Healthcare has played an integral part in our mobile vaccination missions, and they have graciously agreed to join us again for our Juneteenth celebration. We encourage everybody to visit Norton Healthcare's Wellness Fair, which will be held from noon to 3 p.m. at the Big Four Lawn. Norton Healthcare will offer free health and wellness services and information about job opportunities. I'm happy to welcome Dr. Stephen Patton, Community Medical Director at Norton Healthcare. Dr. Patton.
Hello, and thank you for having me. My name is Dr. Stephen Patton. I'm a family medicine physician with Norton Healthcare. I'm one of its 3 medical directors for community outreach. We are holding a wellness fair in conjunction with Louisville's Juneteenth Jubilee, part of Norton's commitment to providing access to health care for everyone in the community. We believe access to health care is a right and not just a privilege. And this past year has broadly exposed the inequities of health care, especially in the communities of color. So we are committed to doing whatever is necessary to provide access to health care to people who need and deserve it. Saturday's health event is only one avenue, and it's helping provide increased and convenient health care services. At this event, we will offer health and wellness services along with information on job and career opportunities. All services, including vaccinations and screenings, will be provided to the patient at no cost. These services include COVID-19 vaccinations for children 12 and up. If you are under 18, parental consent will be needed. Healthcare screenings, including blood prostate screenings for men 50 and up, blood pressure checks, blood glucose monitoring, body mass index screening, family wellness information, along with tips for nutrition, exercise, and ways to make exercise and physical activity fun for the entire family. We are pleased to be a part of this event, and we hope to continue to make these connections. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Doc. Okay, final speaker. We're saving the dynamic Wanda Mitchell-Smith, our chairperson, for last to exhort us on to greatness. Wanda.
Thank you so much. First, I want to say thank you, Mayor Fischer. Let's give him a hand. And he's deserving of that because he didn't have to do it, but he did. And just so that I can make myself clear to councilmen, this needs to be codified, not just by the stroke of a pen, but it needs to be codified. What a wonderful, that's okay, go ahead. What a wonderful historic moment that we embark on this coming week. And so we're just very excited. And I've been very honored to serve this year as the representative of the mayor's office. And he is correct, because all these people behind me have been working since February, since the day that the commission was named, and we have gotten to this moment of time. With that said, I shared with them on our last WebEx meeting that I'm going to give them 2 weeks off, and then we'll start for FY22. So this is an exciting day because FY22 will be post-COVID, and so many other things will be on the plate and be included for this community. Want to make sure that everyone knows about all of the activities that are going on throughout our city. If you don't, please go to our website at www.juneteenthlu.com, and those things that are not mentioned in the brochure, you will find them there. So there's so many activities, including 4th Street Live, Waterfront. We're going to Shawnee Park. We're going all over this city with our message and our history. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking part of what we had to present with you today. And as we move forward into the future, we want you to know that everyone is welcome to the Juneteenth table. Bless you.
Thank you so much, Wanda. So in closing, I'll say again, this celebration is a great opportunity to bring the people of our community together, adding a significant festival to our already spectacular calendar of events, and inspire our residents to learn more about Juneteenth and to feel a deeper connection to our shared history and our shared commitment to the future as well. So I encourage everybody to view the full lineup of family-friendly activities at juneteenthlu.com. And again, I'd like to thank our great esteemed commissioners, our community partners that include UPS, Norton Healthcare, Republic Bank, Papa's John's, the Humana Foundation, the Kentucky Opera, Louisville Pride, Louisville Visual Arts, and Waterfront Park for their commitment and dedication. And if you're not involved this year, as Wanda said, as our chairperson said, it's a big table. We got everybody to help us make our Juneteenth celebrations bigger and better each and every year. So please start by taking part in our 2021 Juneteenth Jubilee celebration. We'll see you around town this week. Thanks for coming.